Hello, everyone. Louisa Jewell here. I'm thrilled to have Caroline Miller with us today. Caroline is a keynote speaker, an author, best-selling author of many books, and she's an expert in positive psychology. She's also a goal-setting futurist, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Welcome, Caroline. We're so pleased to have you.
Hello, my friend. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about this, your new book. And we have been, in the positive psychology community, Caroline, we have been anticipating this book because your first
Yeah,
book, Creating Your Best
yeah.
Life, was really groundbreaking in the science
hmm
of goal setting. And
hmm
nobody was talking about all of the
Yeah.
science behind goal setting before you wrote that book. And so tell us more about how it came about to write that first book, Caroline.
Right. Good question. So I was in that very first class in 2005 at Penn in the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology. And early in that year, I think it was October of 2005, we were assigned goal setting theory. And I remember standing in the classrooms at Wharton, and I said out loud to nobody in particular, in shock, there is a science to goal setting called goal setting theory. I just remember just being like, what? Because I had my ICF certification in coaching. I'd been through Coach U. I'd taken all this training. I had all these books. I've always focused on success and productivity and goal setting. And I found out that none of them, none of my training, none of my courses, none of my books, I had never, ever been quoted goal setting theory by Locke and Latham. What I did have is SMART goals, which we now know are urban legends that are actually counterproductive to goal accomplishment. Law of attraction, which I never bought into. OKRs and KPIs, which are meh, like, I don't know, beginning of a conversation, but goal setting theory didn't exist. So Marty wanted me to write about, he found out I'd written a bunch of books. So he wanted me to write things on healthcare and things on this. And he really wanted to move the needle. And I kept coming back to, but Marty, nobody knows about goal setting theory and nobody knows about this new meta analysis showing that happiness precedes success. So truly, this knowledge has not made it out of academia and into the mass market. So he said, you're going to write it anyway, go write it. And then he wrote about me in the book Flourish and said I had added a major missing piece to the world of goal accomplishment. So that book became a bestseller. It's still ranked number one in lots of places until this book. And so I really felt the mass market, you, me, everyone out there deserved to have the science of goal setting. So that book, Creating Your Best Life, was the first mass market book to do this. However, it was not just goal accomplishment. It is, they called it a lifeless book at Sterling. I decided after going through COVID, after going through all the changes that have occurred in the goal setting world, motivation psychology, that we needed a new guidebook that had everything you could ever need from beginning to envision a goal to accomplishing the goal, all the science, all the best
Yes.
findings in one guidebook. And I wrote it to be used by teenagers, managers, CEOs, women, men of all ages, all cultures, because I think everyone deserves to have this science. And that's behind writing the first book, and that's behind writing my ninth book. Yeah,
Yes. It's your ninth book. Ninth.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So okay, you've said a few things there. So and that's what we have been saying. Now, Caroline, I've known you for many years, and I think one thing
Mm,
that always inspires me about you is that when you get something in your head, you
mm,
accomplish it. You accomplish goals.
mm,
And I know that this book now
mm,
is about so goal setting theory, great. Let's set the right goals. Let's be striving for
right,
the right goals.
right,
This book has a lot of now, how do you do that?
right.
What is the formula for
Yeah,
you? And it's more about goal accomplishment now. So
yes,
it's like a rounding out of everything you've been talking about goals.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there's one thing that you said, Caroline, in there that I want to hone in on because you've been saying this to me for a while, and I want our
Mm.
listeners to know this thing about SMART goals. In fact,
Oh,
the other day, somebody mentioned SMART goals. Okay, so you're not a big proponent of SMART goals, and okay, so tell us about this, Caroline, because we're all like, ooh. What's what's this
SMART
about?
goals is mishmash jargon syndrome. There's a name for this because this is just a catchy acronym a guy came up with, a consultant came up with in the 1980s, early 1980s. It was published in some management journal and it stuck. It was sticky. However, however you define those letters, is not what everyone does. People mix it up. They do realistic. Originally, it was realistic, but it's gone on. Relevant, time bound, measurable has been all kinds of M words. And so it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. However, if you just start with that first definition, anybody who's read goal setting theory immediately knows that it's not science. And that is because R for realistic is not what Locke and Latham found. After dozens, actually hundreds of studies, and it's now been replicated all over the world in thousands of studies with no replication challenges. That alone should tell everyone everything they need to know. This is real science. They found out that the best outcomes, bar none, were always challenging and specific, and those are not realistic goals. These are
Okay.
not
Oh,
realistic goals. So if you
interesting.
set a realistic goal, and this is straight out of the mouths of Locke and Latham, if you
Yeah.
set a realistic goal, you are undermining your ability to find out what you're made of. You're undermining your ability to do the hardest thing you can do outside of your fingertips. Realistic is not where all the benefits are. And we know this because society rewards people who do hard things, not realistic things. And
Right.
realistic things are often what in companies, if you give people the ability to set a goal that is what their bonus is going to be, very few people are going to choose to go outside of their comfort zone and see what they're made of, to see what they're capable of. But Locke and Latham found that when you divide goals into learning goals and performance goals, both outcomes are always the best when they're challenging and specific, outside of your comfort zone, doing hard things. But they're different kinds of goals, and therein lies the magic because this simple, elegant theory, published in 1990, updated at least once in 2015 by Gary Latham to show that priming makes a difference. What they found is that if you mix up learning goals and performance goals, therein are all the disasters in the business world and elsewhere. So you got to get it
Okay.
right from the beginning.
Okay, okay. A couple of things there. So for those people who don't know who Locke and Latham are, can you
Mm-hmm.
just give us a quick introduction?
Sure.
Yeah.
Edwin Locke and Gary Latham. I think Edwin Locke is long retired, and I don't know where he lives, maybe California. Gary Latham's in Toronto with you at the
Hey.
University of Toronto at the Rotman School of Business. And they were working separately, both on goal setting. Edwin Locke originally was the one guy who pushed back about behaviorists who thought that, well, everything that people's behavior tells us is what motivates them, and that's actually not true. Edwin Locke said, no, their brains have something to do with it. What they tell themselves in their brains has something to do with what they do. Otherwise, this was just like the 1950s with Henry Ford and Fordism. Tell workers what to do and they'll do it, and that's goal setting. So Edwin Locke was doing that work. Gary Latham comes along and he marries his work. And this is a big deal, Louisa. People don't realize what a big deal it is that these two stars in academia were doing separate work and they decided to join forces to see how much more powerful a theory they could create. They did not seek stages, they didn't seek riches, they didn't seek book contracts, they didn't seek all the things that would have let this theory be better known. And it still surprises me that nobody knows it, but it's because they didn't seek fame and fortune. And
Right.
I think because everybody sets goals, they think they know how to do it. And so
Mm,
that sticky acronym, SMART, has misled people. And it's what I call a zombie theory. It won't
yeah.
die, but it shouldn't be alive anymore. We
What
all
does
need to,
what does SMART stand for, Caroline?
it's,
It's
it stands for
spec
lots of different things. In my book, I
yeah.
go into all
And
the ways to define
that's
it.
part of the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
That because
Yeah.
I always thought it was like specific, measurable. You're right. What is it?
Attainable. What if you make
Attainable,
it attainable? That's not goal setting theory either.
right.
Relevant,
Realistic or
realistic.
relevant. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's
Timelined or yeah. Yeah.
in my book, I have a variety of them. This is why it's called jargon mishmash syndrome. The minute you have a definition with an acronym that means different things to different people, it has lost all its value.
Yes. Yeah.
So SMART goals are
So
not good goals.
Okay, so we want to have goals that are
Yeah.
challenging for
And
us
and specific.
and specific.
Yes.
So if I'm setting a goal, I want, instead of saying I want to lose weight, my goal should be
Hmm.
I want to
Hmm.
lose 10 pounds and make it challenging. Maybe turn it up to 15 pounds. And is that it?
It's part of it. I mean, is it the first time you've tried to lose weight? In which case, it's a learning goal. You're learning how to do it. You're learning what are
Okay.
the best ways for your height, your weight, your age, your medical background, et cetera. And then if it's a performance goal, you've done it before, you probably have a checklist that goes along with it. Checklist goals are performance goals. You've done it before. It's like a recipe. Check, 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 right?
Okay, so you actually talk about this in the book, this difference
Yeah.
between a performance goal and a
Yep.
learning goal. So
Yes. Yes.
so if it's something I've done before, I set a performance goal. And if
Yes.
it's something I've never done before, I
It's a
set a
learning
learning
goal.
goal. And
Yes.
and that is a really important distinction right off
Yeah.
the bat because
Yeah.
often we set goals
Hmm.
and we go after them like they're performance goals
Yeah.
when in fact they're learning goals. And so you stop yourself. I've seen so many people
Yeah.
who stop themselves from moving forward because they say, I don't know how to do this. So they
I'm not
abandon
getting
it.
mentored. Right.
Yeah,
I don't know how to
or
do it.
I
Yeah.
procrastinate. I don't know. I don't know how to. And so right off the bat,
Yeah.
Caroline, that is
Yeah.
so powerful. So
I know.
if I have a learning goal, what is the best way to approach that then? And I love the
Hmm.
checklist idea, by the way. I
Yeah.
love the checklist idea.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the learning goal. What's the best way for me to accomplish those kinds of goals?
So I go through this in the book really, really carefully. So I'll only be able to do justice to a small part of it. And the book is available now. Um, so the first thing you do is it a learning goal or performance goal? If it's a learning goal, you ask yourself, what are the skills I need to accomplish this goal? Who's done it before? Who's done it really well? What's my standard of excellence that I'm shooting for? And where am I going to learn it? Am I going to learn it from Wikipedia, YouTube, another person, a mentor, for example? Where am I going to learn it? So, how will I flatten my learning curve as quickly as possible? And to make it challenging and specific, you might say to your manager who's given you this goal and you push back and you have humility and you say, I will do this, but I have to figure out how to do it first. Will you show me? Will you give me a grace period to be curious about it? Because when people are curious, they're engaged in the process of accomplishing a goal, which helps with people remaining on the job. No turnover, no disillusionment, no fear of failure, no cheating to try to get to an outcome by skipping steps or getting someone else's work and calling it your own. So you find out who's done it, how am I going to get this knowledge, and how quickly can I test the ways in which I'm learning it. So by Friday, I'll have looked into 3 different ways to get this information, and I'll show my manager. I'll show myself, and then you start testing and experimenting. What kind of reactions am I getting? Results am I getting? And one thing that's very different about this book, to be honest, is I realized in February while I was writing it that no one had ever challenged the fact that women get different feedback than men do. Because part of goal setting theory is what feedback are you getting that tells you you're on the right track, you're learning the right way. Because women get different feedback than men do. Not everyone is the same when it comes to you're doing a good job. Yep, you're on the right track. Because I hate to say it, but women often get shot down when they're in the process of achieving something or they have achieved it and they won't get feedback that tells them you're doing a great job, keep at it. So that's something I go into in the book. So everyone's unique and an individual. How someone else did it, you can learn from. Make sure the way you're doing it works for you and people with your kind of background.
So Caroline, if women are getting different kinds of feedback, can you tell
Mm-hmm.
what is the difference and how can
Mm,
I make a difference if I am coaching or mentoring a young
mm-hmm.
female leader?
Mm-hmm.
What should I be doing that maybe she's not getting in her regular course of her work?
Yeah. Okay. So let's just start with the fact that it is a different conversation for men and women. And this isn't often discussed. So Adam Grant told me and has told the world that he got it wrong in the book Give and Take, that women who give it work and give of their time and their energy they don't get rewarded the way men do. Men who are givers are seen as wonderful people. And when women have boundaries and say, I can't get my own work done if I do this, they're seen as selfish and cold and not particularly helpful. And they pay a social penalty. So a piece of what you want to do is talk to women about the fact that there are double standards everywhere, starting with onboarding. There's new research showing that when women are joining an organization, they're told, go to happy hour, meet your colleagues, go out and make sure you network so that people know who you are and what this new role is. They found that women who do this, who take this advice, are actually dinged. They're actually criticized for being selfish and self absorbed, whereas men pay no penalty whatsoever. That's just
Wow.
one of many findings. Here's another one. This one, they're shaking me up because we're just now thinking to look at the research and say, okay, this research that we give to consultants that they put out in organizations and on stages, does it work for men and women? We're just starting now to go back to the research and parse it. So here's a good one that's new. So women and men who have the same task in a job, if the woman finishes the job on time, really well, it does it on time. I just want to say on time. A man who doesn't finish on time but works longer and spends more, weekend hours or night hours working on it, he is seen as more dedicated to the company. The woman who finishes on time does not get the same reward. So
Wow.
this says to me, in your goal pursuit, make sure that you are getting the feedback that tells you you are on your way to accomplishing the goal. So you have to start with, it's not a level playing field. And make sure your performance review includes the fact that you've done things on time, you've done them well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You got to document, 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 and make sure that when you receive a task or a goal from a manager or an organization, or you set it for yourself, that you're really making clear, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm doing it, here's the timeline, and what's the reward going to be. It's got to be
Okay.
really clear. And one last thing I want to say about that. In early 2024, Gallup published their State of the Workplace 2024. And what they said is that workers are still turning over and disengaging in record numbers, and productivity is down. Gallup said the number one cure for all the problems in the workplace is better goal setting systems,
Wow.
evidence based goal setting systems. They said the whole process is screwed up. There are a million productivity dashboards. I've never found one that uses goal setting theory.
Time to create one, Caroline.
Someone's going to hear me and put it into their dashboard, and maybe that'll be helpful. But
Yeah.
we don't have good goal hygiene in companies, and I would say the vast majority, over 95%, probably don't have good goal setting
Mm.
hygiene.
Well, and so now they have a roadmap, now they have a roadmap
Yes.
in the book, right? Now,
Yeah.
one other thing I wanted to talk about was the bridge theory, your bridge
Yeah.
theory, because I
Yeah.
thought that was brilliant. And
Yeah.
and I remember saying to you, Caroline, we
Yeah.
really want to know about
Yeah.
how you go about achieving this goals. And you said,
Yes.
Louisa, that is my bridge theory, and that's what I want to share. So tell us a little.
So I've been working on this for probably 15 years, testing all the different acronyms, thinking jargon mishmash syndrome. This is never going to change. These letters will never mean anything else. It's tested. Okay, so what I realized is that first of all, you start with the engine of goal setting, which is you start with Locke and Latham's goal setting theory, learning goal or performance goal. Start with that.
Okay.
Second is the big missing piece, which is how are you going to accomplish that? So I've rounded up all the best research on motivation and mindset and priming and grit and whatever. And what I have is a foolproof system that walks you through different areas. So brainstorming is number one. Brainstorming. And the number one question I have found after you figure out learning goal or performance goal, that's always the first thing in brainstorming is what's new? What's the new technology out there that's going to help me? Even if it's a performance goal, how am I going to do it better, more efficiently, more effectively? I've got a long list of prompts in the book that make you brainstorm in new and different ways. So that's number one. Number two, relationships. We need to know who needs to be involved in the accomplishment of this goal and who shouldn't be in our lives while we're accomplishing this goal. Who do we need to
Oh,
keep out? Who do
I
we
like
need
that.
to meet, et cetera, et cetera? But we don't pay enough attention to that. And the
Yes.
Stoics talk about premeditatio malorum, premeditate the evils on the path in front of you. One that gets no attention is who are the people who are not active, constructive responding? Who are the people who don't want you to succeed? And for women, unfortunately, sometimes it's other women. Okay, so you got to take a look at that. The next thing is investments. What kinds of investments of time, money, and energy will you be required to make to be successful? And you really have to be thorough in this. The next one is decision making. And what I'm particularly fascinated by is not just bias in decision making, but noise. Daniel Kahneman's work on noise. He died earlier this year, and he said before he died, for all the work he had done in the field of bias, to talk to people about things like, thinking fast and slow, what are the biases? He said noise caused more loss in the business world, more lost dollars, more lost time. So noise is something we have to do. We have to do decision making audits. What's
So,
noise?
yeah, yeah. For those who don't know,
Okay.
yeah,
Noise is when you're making an identical decision about something one week and it's the same decision you're making the next week, and you make a different decision because of what's happened in your life. Maybe you didn't get enough sleep the night before. Maybe your football team lost or won. Maybe you didn't get your workout in that day. But this is when you are making different decisions based on the same information. And so, what is the way that they're finding that's helping with noise? And let's just take radiologists who are reading the same scan about, let's say, a mammogram. They're finding artificial intelligence reduces all the noise in reading these
oh,
mammograms
so
because it
good.
is agnostic, right?
Yeah, yes.
So, and many people
Ah,
don't do this. They don't say, have I made the same decision about something at work, in my personal life, just based on how I felt that day? What else was happening? Was I hungry? People don't realize the ways in which their decision making is flawed. Going into a big goal, you better know, when are you going to decide to start? When are you going to decide that you're making the right progress? When are you going to decide to pivot, that you've gotten enough feedback that you should go in another direction? So decision making is huge.
yes.
G is for good grit. Do you have the grit that is required to accomplish this goal? And then I talk about the three kinds of bad grit: stupid grit, selfie grit, and faux grit. And that's all in the book. And excellence, going back to the whole idea of smart. Excellence is, what's the standard you're shooting for? We say in goal setting theory, you cannot hit a target you cannot see. That excellence has to be defined from the outset. And if you're looking for the best possible outcome, as opposed to just an outcome to keep going along the
Yeah,
way to accomplish this big goal, it always should be challenging and specific. But make it know when you've achieved your goal. Don't make it fuzzy. And that's it. And I found if you skip any of those steps, you have to go back to the previous step anyway. So be thorough and thoughtful as you create your strategy. It's foolproof. I have tested it as long as you've known me.
yeah, yeah, and you've done this with CEOs, and you've done this with teams, you've done this with
Yeah.
people at all levels,
Yeah.
and tried this. And not only that, Caroline, but I watch you achieve every single goal that you
Mm,
want to go after. And
hmm.
so I mean, we are so grateful. I mean, this is so wonderful that you've written this book. We are just thrilled in the positive psychology community, in the business community.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be really helpful. And Caroline, there is nothing that makes people happier than the ability and the final accomplishment of going after a
Yeah.
dream that they have always wanted, a goal that they have always wanted.
Right.
And it's so central to our happiness and our well-being and our humanness. So
Right.
thank you for writing this book. Thank you for
Thank
being a
you.
proponent for also for women supporting women and
Yeah.
for everything you're doing out there for to help us be happier, live better lives, and
Yeah.
be more accomplished and more successful. So can't wait. And I've read the book, but and I know,
You're in the acknowledgments,
yes.
Louisa. You're in the
Oh,
acknowledgments.
oh my
Don't
gosh!
forget to read the
Am I?
acknowledgments. Yeah, you are.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna.
And you
Oh,
didn't know that and you still liked the book.
of
That means a lot
course.
to me. You've been
Oh,
so
that's so
supportive.
sweet. Oh,
Yeah.
of course. Yes, of course. Well, I love your work, Caroline. I love your work.
Thank you.
There's nothing, it's all genuine. It's all genuine support because, and you've been a big supporter of mine. So thank you.
Hmm.
All
Yeah.
right,
Thank you.
Caroline.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Appreciate it.
Yes, can't wait. And so just want to say to everyone, it's available now on Amazon. Get your copy,
Give
and
it
it's
to
going to be,
somebody as a
yeah.
present. Buy
w-
two.
Well, and it's gonna be something you refer to. I've already referred it. Oh, I'm using it with the teams that I'm working with. I'm already
Great.
using the concepts, the theories, the practices. So thanks
Thank
very
you.
much. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Caroline.
it.
Thanks for being with us.